Arlen's small hands trembled as he clutched the edge of the rope harness. The villagers around him whispered in hurried, fearful tones, eyes darting to the massive shadow in the crater below. Smoke curled from its nostrils, glowing eyes fixed on him, and a low, guttural rumble shook the ground beneath his feet. Every heartbeat felt like a drum of doom. "Step forward, child," one villager barked. "Do as you're told." Arlen swallowed hard. His legs felt like lead, but he forced himself forward, eyes never leaving the creature. It was larger than anything he had ever seen, scales black as night, jagged and glinting even in the dim morning light. Its wings were folded, yet the faintest movement sent the dust around its claws swirling. The villagers had told him stories. The dragon had devoured grown men in seconds, flattened barns with a swipe of its tail, and burned entire herds with a single breath. And yet, as he stepped closer, it did not roar. It did not lash out. It simply tilted its head, nostrils flaring, studying him with an almost curiosity. Arlen's chest heaved. He felt fear gnawing at his stomach, but something inside him, a stubborn spark, refused to let terror control him. "I'm not afraid," he whispered, barely audible. He squared his shoulders and walked the last few steps. The villagers recoiled, some gripping each other, others muttering prayers under trembling breaths. A sudden flare of wind swept across the crater as the dragon shifted, dragging its chains along jagged stone. Sparks flew and the ropes tethering it groaned. The villagers gasped. Some stumbled back, one tripped and cried out. The dragon's massive head dipped lower, eyeing the child with a slow, deliberate stare. It sniffed the air around him, and a strange click echoed from deep in its throat, a sound that made Arlen's spine tingle. "Stay still," he said louder this time. The words sounded braver than he felt. He lifted a hand not to strike but in a cautious, almost pleading gesture. The dragon's head moved slightly closer, smoke curling past its jagged teeth. It sniffed his fingers and then, astonishingly, it did nothing else. One of the villagers muttered, It won't touch him." Others shook their heads in disbelief. Arlen's mind raced. Why is it not attacking me? The stories never mentioned a dragon that paused. They only spoke of fire and death. But now he saw something different, hesitation, intelligence, maybe even emotion. He took another step forward, letting his small voice carry over the tense silence. "It doesn't have to hurt me." The dragon made a low, almost musical hum. Arlen froze. He had never heard a sound like that. The villagers whispered again, fear sharpening every word. "It's testing him, it's deciding." Arlen's pulse raced, but he forced himself to breathe evenly. He glanced down at the chains securing the creature. Rusted, heavy but frayed in spots. A plan began to form in his mind, small but daring. If he could just show the dragon he wasn't a threat. Maybe, just maybe. A sudden shout cut through the air. One of the villagers had stepped forward, throwing a small rock toward the dragon to frighten it back into submission. The dragon flared its wings and a shockwave of wind nearly knocked Arlen off balance. Dust and pebbles flew in every direction, scraping his cheeks and stinging his eyes. The villagers cried out, trying to pull him back. But Arlen held his ground. The dragon's gaze snapped to the villager, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Then the impossible happened. The dragon did not strike. Its wings didn't lash. Instead, it let out a sharp, piercing sound echoing through the crater, and nudged Arlen gently with its massive snout, like a parent testing the courage of its child. The crowd gasped. Silence fell heavier than ever. Arlen's chest felt light for a moment, disbelief mingling with awe. The dragon had not eaten him. It had spared him. His small hand instinctively reached up, touching the rough tip of its snout. The dragon's eyes softened, yet the hum in its throat continued, a warning, a question, a promise. Arlen realized then that the dragon wasn't just a monster. It was something else. Something intelligent, something capable of choice. Something alive in ways the villagers could not understand. A sudden rumble beneath the chains made Arlen jump. The dragon shifted again, muscles tensing, wings fluttering with the threat of movement. Sparks from the metal flew across the rocky floor, and a long chain snapped with a deafening clang. The villagers screamed and scrambled backward, but Arlen stayed rooted. He looked into the dragon's glowing eyes. They were not just eyes, they were windows to a mind that could reason, feel, and perhaps even understand him. His heart pounded, not just from fear, but from an impossible, electric hope. Then, without warning, the dragon emitted a deafening roar that shook the crater walls. Not at him, but at the villagers, the ones who had brought him here. Dust fell from the cliffs. Rocks tumbled. A part of the chain dangled loose, swinging dangerously above them. Arlen's stomach turned. Something was about to happen, something no one expected. The dragon had made its first choice. And whatever came next, he knew he had to act fast. He stepped forward again. The dragon blinked, smoke curling around its horns, waiting. And then the ground trembled beneath them both. Arlen's legs shook, but he did not move back. The tremor underfoot grew stronger, rattling loose stones and sending small clouds of dust spiraling into the air. The villagers screamed, some stumbling over one another as panic spread like wildfire. The dragon's massive wings beat the air, raising gusts that tore at cloaks, hair, and robes. Its glowing eyes stayed locked on Arlen, sharp and intelligent, yet curious, not angry. The ground cracked beside him. A jagged fissure opened, scattering rocks in every direction. Arlen swallowed hard, his small hands clenching into fists. He had to think fast. One wrong move and the villagers' fear, or the dragon's power, could crush him. He glanced at the chains holding the dragon. They were thick and rusted, but the sudden snap of one had loosened tension in the others. If I can keep it calm, maybe I can lead it without anyone getting hurt. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Stay still, Arlen," someone shouted. The voice was lost in the roar of wings and the rattling chains. But Arlen did not waver. Instead, he picked up a small torch from the rocky floor, one the villagers had dropped, and held it out at arm's length. The dragon flinched at the flickering flame, a hiss escaping its nostrils, and the villagers froze. Arlen's heart raced, but he stepped closer, holding the torch steady. "It's okay," he whispered, voice trembling but firm. "I'm not here to hurt you." The dragon tilted its head, emitting those same strange harmonic clicks from deep in its throat. Arlen didn't understand the language, but he felt something in the vibration, a challenge, a test. "I have to show it I can be trusted," he thought, "or we're all dead." Suddenly, one of the older villagers lunged forward, dagger in hand, aiming for the dragon's exposed side. The creature's tail whipped around like a thunderbolt, crashing into the rocks beside them. Dust and debris filled the air, and the villager screamed as he fell backward. Arlen's stomach churned at the sight, but he held his ground. He raised the torch higher, letting the flame reflect off the dragon's black scales. The creature stepped closer, cautious, and nudged the torch with its snout. Arlen jerked back instinctively, but he steadied himself again. "It's testing me," he realized. "It's trying to see if I'm afraid, or if I can lead." The dragon let out a deep, resonant rumble that shook loose pebbles from the crater walls. One chain groaned and then snapped, clanging to the rocky floor. Sparks flew where it scraped the stone. The villagers screamed and fell back even further. Arlen's heart leapt. He knew the dragon was stronger than anything they could contain. If it broke free completely, none of them would survive. Thinking quickly, Arlen spotted a long rusted beam lying nearby. He grabbed it, raising it as if to strike, but instead of swinging he banged it sharply against a rock. The clang echoed loudly. The dragon froze, its head snapping toward the sound, eyes narrowing. Then, in a breathtaking instant, it nudged Arlen gently with its snout again, a careful, deliberate movement, as if acknowledging his courage. Arlen felt a spark of hope, but the moment was short-lived. Another chain snapped, and this time the dragon's wings flared in warning. Rocks tumbled from the edges of the crater, and a cloud of dust made it hard to see. Villagers shouted, arguing over what to do next, but none moved toward Arlen. Fear held them frozen. Arlen took a deep breath, realizing he had only one chance. He stepped closer to the dragon, holding the torch steadily in front of him. "Follow me," he whispered. "I won't hurt you. Trust me." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the dragon shifted its massive body, dragging its claws along the rocky floor, and in a slow, deliberate motion, it moved toward him. Sparks flew as metal scraped stone. Arlen's stomach clenched, but he held firm. The creature had chosen to listen. A sudden crack rang out behind him. One of the villagers had fired a makeshift crossbow, hoping to scare the dragon back into chains. The bolt struck a rock, shattering it, and the dragon spun toward the sound. Its eyes glowed brighter, wings snapping forward. Arlen froze, knowing any wrong move could trigger its wrath. Then, astonishingly, it did not strike him. Instead, it let out a roar, not of anger but of warning, a command that echoed across the crater. The villagers froze, some falling to their knees. Arlen's small hand reached out, touching the dragon's rough snout once again. Its scales were warm, the hum of its throat vibrating through his fingers. "See," he whispered, voice barely audible over the noise. "I'm not your enemy." The dragon blinked, and then the micro cliffhanger hit. one of the remaining chains snapped completely, swinging free with deadly momentum. It struck a jagged rock, sending sparks into the air. The dragon's wings flared in sudden panic, and for the first time, it moved with full force, not restraint. Arlen had to act instantly. His mind raced. He could feel the weight of every villager's life pressing down on him. One wrong move and we're all dead. He took a cautious step forward, holding out the torch and speaking softly, steadying himself against the roar and the chaos. The dragon's massive head lowered, eyes still glowing yet locked on him. Sparks flew around them. Dust swirled, rocks tumbled, and the crater seemed alive with danger. Arlen's heart pounded in his chest. He knew this was the moment everything depended on. One wrong choice and the dragon could crush them all, or worse, turn on him. Then the dragon made a decision that no one expected. Its enormous claws dug into the rocky floor and it nudged Arlen again, this time firmly, almost insistently. It was as if the creature was saying, "Lead. Decide. Survive." The villagers froze, eyes wide. Arlen swallowed his fear. He had to move first, think fast, and act smart. And in that instant, the first real path to survival opened. Arlen's legs burned with tension as he stepped carefully across the jagged rocks. The dragon followed, its massive body moving with surprising grace, each step shaking the ground beneath them. Dust and debris swirled in the crater, and the villagers had retreated to the edges, murmuring prayers and shaking their heads in disbelief. No one had ever seen a human move with such confidence in front of the beast. He glanced down at the chains dangling from the dragon's legs. They were old and rusted, scarred from countless battles. He realized something. This wasn't just a wild creature. It had been captured, tortured, forced to obey. Its hesitation, its curiosity, all of it made sense now. The dragon wasn't cruel by nature. It had been trained to kill, but it remembered freedom. Arlen's mind raced. He could see the patterns in the dragon's movements, the way it reacted to the torchlight, the way it nudged him when it trusted him. I can guide it. I can help it escape. But I have to be smart. A sudden shout tore through the dust. One of the villagers, younger and braver, or perhaps just more desperate, had climbed partway down the crater and thrown a rock at the dragon's shoulder. It struck with a clanging sound. The dragon froze, muscles tensing, wings twitching. Arlen's pulse surged. If the dragon lashed out now, everyone would die. He stepped forward, raising the torch higher. "Stop. Don't," he shouted, voice ringing clear over the chaos. "It won't hurt you. Don't make it." For a moment, it was impossible to tell if the dragon would obey him. Then, almost impossibly, it shifted its massive head toward the villager, smoke curling from its nostrils. But instead of attacking, it lowered its head slightly, eyes locking on Arlen as if asking, "What do I do?" Arlen swallowed hard. He had to think fast. He glanced at a pile of broken beams and stones nearby, then picked up a jagged piece of metal. Not as a weapon, but as a tool. He threw it to the other side of the crater, clanging against a rock wall. Sparks flew. The dragon's attention flicked to the sound. Moved. Slowly at first, then with more confidence, nudging Arlen along the edge of the crater, away from the villagers. Each step required careful calculation. One wrong move and it could lash out accidentally. His heart hammered in his chest. Then he saw it, a small hidden crevice in the rocky wall. The dragon could squeeze through it if they worked together. It was narrow, dangerous, but it could be their escape. Arlen swallowed his fear. "This way," he said firmly. The dragon tilted its head again and without hesitation, it began moving toward the crevice. Dust and rubble cascaded from the walls as they progressed, the dragon careful not to crush him. But then came a new complication. A villager fired a crossbow, and the bolt struck the wall beside the dragon, sending a shower of sparks and small rocks raining down. The dragon recoiled and Arlen's stomach dropped. The creature was skittish now, its trust fragile. One more misstep and they could lose control completely. Arlen's mind raced. He remembered something the village elders had once said: creatures respond to respect, not fear. He lowered the torch slightly, speaking softly. "I'm with you. We're together. You don't have to fight me." The dragon froze, listening. Then, slowly, it nudged him forward again. Sparks flew around them, dust filled the air, but it moved as though guided by Arlen's voice. He realized he wasn't just surviving. He was leading. As they neared the crevice, Arlen saw something that made his heart leap. The dragon's chest was scarred, deep gouges from chains and weapons, the evidence of years of abuse. Its wings bore tears and burns. He understood now, this wasn't just fear or instinct keeping it from attacking. It was memory. Pain. Loss. Arlen reached out carefully, touching the dragon's massive forearm. The scales were rough but warm, and the harmonic hum vibrated through his fingers. "I know," he whispered. "I see what they did to you. I'm not like them." The dragon blinked slowly. For a moment it seemed almost human. Arlen felt a flicker of connection, a silent understanding forming between them. He realized the impossible truth: the dragon had chosen him. Not just to survive but to trust. Suddenly, a sharp clanging echoed from deeper in the crater. One of the villagers had tried to block their escape, lifting a heavy stone. The dragon reared back, wings flaring, a roar that shook the walls of the crater escaping from its throat. Dust and pebbles rained down. Arlen gripped its scales tightly, holding on as they teetered near the edge. Then a shock. The dragon snapped its massive chains completely, freeing itself from the last restraints. Sparks flew as the metal struck the rock floor, and the creature's wings unfurled fully, shadowing the entire crater. For a second, time seemed to stand still. Villagers froze in terror. Arlen's heart raced, but he didn't feel fear. He felt awe, respect, connection. He whispered softly to the dragon, "You're free now. Come with me." The dragon lowered its head, nudging him gently. Then, with a single powerful beat of its wings, it lifted into the air, carrying Arlen along the rocky wall toward the hidden crevice. Dust and debris swirled, sparks flew, and the villagers shouted in disbelief. No human had ever controlled, guided, or survived alongside this beast before. As they emerged from the narrow path, the dragon paused on a high ledge, looking back at the crater. Its glowing eyes scanned the villagers below, then settled on Arlen. The hum from its throat was low, almost approving. Arlen's chest heaved. For the first time he felt a real spark of hope. He had guided a creature meant to kill, tamed by pain and rage without using force. He had survived. And more than that, he had earned trust. But just as he let himself breathe, a strange vibration pulsed through the air. The dragon's ears flicked, and Arlen noticed a faint glow far beyond the crater, deep in the mountains. A signal, almost mechanical, almost alive. He didn't understand it yet, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever lay beyond, it was watching them. The dragon turned its massive head toward him, smoke curling from its nostrils, eyes narrowing with focus. Arlen's pulse quickened. He had led them out of one danger, but a new, unknown threat was already waiting. And this time he would have to be smarter, braver, and faster than ever before. Arlen's breath came in short, jagged bursts as he clung to the dragon's rough, warm scales. The wind whipped past them, carrying the dust and smoke of the crater far below. Every instinct in his body screamed that the danger wasn't over. He could feel it in the vibration of the rocks under the dragon's claws, in the hum of tension that rolled off its massive wings. The glow from deep in the mountains pulsed again. Arlen squinted, trying to make sense of it. The signal was faint but deliberate, like a heartbeat calling out across the wild terrain. Something was waiting for them, and he knew instinctively it would not be gentle. "Stay close," he shouted over the roar of the wind. He clutched the dragon's horns with both hands. The creature's scales burned under his palms, but he did not let go. "We can do this," he whispered, half to himself, half to the dragon. "We have to survive." The ground ahead narrowed sharply, a jagged ridge leading to the edge of the mountains. One misstep and they would plummet into the dark abyss below. Arlen's small mind calculated the risks. One wrong move, one slip of the dragon's wings, and it could all end. But fear did not stop him. Determination pushed him forward. Suddenly the wind shifted violently, carrying a smell that made Arlen's stomach turn. Smoke and metal with a faint, acrid tang he didn't recognize. From the shadows of the ridge, something massive emerged. Not a dragon, not entirely. Its skin shimmered metallic, eyes glowing with intelligence, moving with precise, unnatural grace. Whatever it was, it had been waiting for them. Arlen froze for a heartbeat, then gritted his teeth. "We don't back down," he said. The dragon's hum vibrated in agreement beneath his fingers. It flared its wings, sending a gust that knocked loose rocks tumbling toward the newcomer. The creature hesitated but did not retreat. Arlen scanned the terrain. There were loose stones, narrow ledges, and jagged outcroppings. His mind worked faster than ever. If I can distract it, if I can buy us time. He reached into his pocket and grabbed a small piece of metal he had picked up earlier. With all his strength, he flung it toward a nearby cliff edge. It struck the rock with a loud clang, sending sparks flying. The creature paused, its glowing eyes narrowing. The dragon seized the moment. With a mighty flap of its wings, it lunged forward, carrying Arlen along the ridge. The wind whipped at them, stones rattling around their claws. The metallic creature followed, moving with terrifying speed, perfectly coordinated. "Hold on!" Arlen shouted, gripping the dragon's horns tighter. His legs were pressed against the scales, muscles straining. Every heartbeat was a countdown. He could feel the dragon's muscles ripple beneath him, sensing his fear but also his courage. The first clash came suddenly. The metallic creature lunged, claws scraping against the ridge. Rocks and dust exploded into the air. Arlen twisted, just enough to avoid being struck, and saw the dragon snap its massive jaws, the tip of its teeth glinting in the harsh sunlight. Sparks flew as metal scraped against scale. Arlen's heart leapt. This wasn't just a fight, it was survival on a razor's edge. He spotted a narrow crevice ahead. "This way." "Hurry," he yelled. The dragon responded, turning sharply, its wings brushing against the cliff walls. The metallic creature followed, its glowing eyes fixed on them. Each step was a battle. Each breath carried tension thick enough to choke on. Arlen's mind raced. He remembered the dragon's scars, its history of abuse and chains. "It's strong, it's smart, it chooses me." He shouted over the roar of the wind, guiding it. "Left. Now left." The dragon obeyed, muscles straining, wings flaring. The metallic creature misjudged the turn and scraped hard against the rock, sparks flying from its armored body. A small victory, but not enough. Arlen knew this was only a temporary edge. The creature recovered, lunging again with unnatural speed. The dragon roared, a deep sound that shook the ridge and made Arlen's teeth chatter. Then it did something he had never expected. It fought strategically. Not blindly, not in rage, but with intelligence. Each strike, each movement protected Arlen, buying him space and time. It used its massive tail to sweep obstacles toward the metallic attacker, creating traps and barriers. Arlen's chest surged with awe. This was no ordinary dragon. It was reasoning, calculating, choosing every move to save him. The metallic creature lunged a third time, claws slashing. Arlen ducked instinctively, feeling the wind from the strike pass over his head. The dragon retaliated, snapping its massive jaws just ahead of the attacker, forcing it to retreat. Sparks flew, rock dust filled the air, and for a heartbeat, the ridge was chaos incarnate. Arlen's stomach twisted, but he held on. "Almost there," he shouted. "Keep moving." The dragon's wings flared one last time, flinging them through the crevice toward a small plateau hidden from view. The metallic creature skidded to a stop, eyes glowing, but could not follow through the narrow exit. They landed hard on the plateau. Arlen rolled to absorb the impact, then scrambled to his feet. His heart pounded, sweat stinging his eyes. The dragon stood beside him, breathing heavily, yet its eyes stayed fixed on him. It had protected him, guided him, and fought for him, not out of instinct but out of trust. Arlen reached up and pressed his palm to its massive snout. You're amazing," he whispered. The dragon responded with a low, harmonic hum, vibrating through his fingers. It was a connection stronger than words. For a moment, victory settled over them. The metallic creature watched from the ridge, calculating, but had not attacked again. Arlen realized something important. This was far from over. The glow in the mountains, the strange signal, they were signals of something bigger. Something waiting. But for now they had survived the impossible. Arlen took a shaky breath and looked at the dragon. "We're not done yet, are we?" The dragon blinked, smoke curling from its nostrils, eyes narrowing toward the distant mountains. Arlen felt a thrill of both fear and hope. Whatever was coming next, they would face it, together. Arlen sank to his knees on the plateau, chest heaving, dust and sweat coating his small face. The dragon stood beside him, massive wings folded now, eyes glowing softly in the fading light. Silence stretched across the plateau, broken only by the faint hiss of wind curling around the jagged rocks. The metallic creature had vanished, retreating into the shadows, but Arlen knew it hadn't gone far. Something was watching them still, waiting for the right moment. He glanced down at his hands, trembling but steadying themselves. Fear had been his constant companion for hours, yet now, a strange warmth pulsed through him. Courage, clarity, and determination had carried him this far. He had faced death, chaos, and a creature meant to kill, and survived not by luck, but by trust, intelligence, and action. The dragon nudged him gently with its snout, smoke curling from its nostrils. Arlen looked into its eyes, wide and glowing, and felt an electric connection. This was no longer predator and prey. They were allies, bound by something deeper than instinct, respect, compassion, and understanding. "Thank you," he whispered, voice breaking. He reached up again, pressing his small hand against its massive snout. The harmonic hum vibrated through him, resonating with something primal, something alive. The dragon lowered its head, letting him touch its rough, scarred scales. He traced the deep gouges, remnants of chains and weapons, and realized the creature had suffered for years. Yet it had still chosen him, a human child, fragile and small. The villagers remained below, gathered cautiously at the edge of the plateau, whispering in awe and fear. They had come to offer him as a sacrifice, expecting death. But the human child had tamed the untamable, guided a creature stronger than any of them, and survived. A small smile formed on Arlen's lips. He had changed the story, rewritten what was thought impossible. He looked at the dragon again. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll come back, and not just them." The hum from its throat rumbled softly, almost like agreement. Arlen realized that the glow he had seen in the mountains, the signal, was not random. Something else was out there, something bigger, something that might challenge even this massive creature. He took a deep breath, heart still racing, and stepped back. The dragon's eyes followed him. "We'll go together," he said firmly. "I'll help you. You'll help me. We'll survive." The dragon's wings unfurled slowly, a magnificent sight against the dimming sky. Dust spiraled as they stretched, the power in each beat evident even without movement. Arlen climbed carefully onto its back, gripping the scales, feeling the strength that could flatten mountains, yet now bent in protection of him. From below, the villagers watched in silence. Some whispered prayers, some stared in disbelief. No one dared move. The child they had offered as food, the one they had thought helpless, now commanded respect, awe, and fear, all in one. Humans, Arlen realized, could shine even against the impossible, not through brute strength but through courage, intelligence, and heart. The dragon leapt from the plateau, wings slicing through the wind. Arlen clung tightly, feeling the thrill and terror of flight. Rocks tumbled below, sparks from broken chains falling like fireflies. The metallic creature had not followed yet, but Arlen knew it was only a matter of time before the larger threat revealed itself. As they soared over mountains, valleys, and forests, Arlen began to notice subtle patterns. The hums from the dragon, the strange glowing signals from the distant peaks, faint movements in the shadows. Something ancient and vast was out there, watching. Perhaps the dragon had been drawn here for a reason beyond their understanding. Yet for the first time, Arlen did not feel helpless. He felt capable. He had survived when adults feared he could not. He had earned trust, guided power, and made choices that no one else dared. He understood now, being human was not about being the strongest, but about choosing courage over fear, intelligence over panic, and empathy over cruelty. The dragon banked sharply over a canyon, eyes scanning for danger, wings slicing through clouds. Arlen held on, feeling every beat of its massive heart through the scales beneath his hands. They were partners now, and together they were unstoppable. Far ahead, the faint glow in the mountains pulsed again. Arlen's eyes narrowed, mind racing with questions. Who, or what, is out there? What does it want? And why did it wait for us? He knew one thing, the adventure was far from over. "Whatever it is," he said softly to the dragon, "we'll face it together." The dragon's hum rose, almost like a laugh, or a promise. Below, the villagers whispered to one another, astonished. One of them muttered, "The child, he survived, and the dragon, it listens to him." Arlen's small figure on the dragon's back seemed larger than life, a symbol of human courage and ingenuity. Even the ones who had doubted him could not deny it. The wind carried them higher, the sun dipping behind jagged peaks. Sparks of gold and orange lit the dragon's scales, and Arlen felt a surge of hope and determination. They had faced death and chaos, yet survived. And whatever was waiting ahead, unknown, vast, and terrifying, they would meet it together, stronger than any single force in the universe. Arlen leaned forward, gripping the scales tightly. His heart pounded with a mix of fear, exhilaration, and anticipation. The mountains ahead glowed faintly with a strange signal, pulsing like a heartbeat. He knew the next challenge would test everything he had learned: courage, intelligence, empathy, and the bond he shared with the dragon. And just beyond the horizon, a shadow moved, a hint of something massive, something ancient, something waiting for the humans who dared to survive. Arlen whispered again, voice steady and brave, "We're ready." The dragon roared in agreement, wings flaring, and together they soared into the unknown. The story was not over. The real test, the true adventure, was just beginning.